You said that was your first, basically like real big opportunity, paying opportunity, essentially. Like this was your one shot, right? How did it feel going from where your journey starting to get to that point and then landing that, and like what was that feeling when you first got it?
Boy, you know, my road is not like a linear straight path. So, I'm a med school dropout. Like I was not planning on pursuing this career. I had a very dear friend of mine who was a college roommate who I had known him since elementary school, and he was a film student. And I would like audit film classes with him, and really began to see we went to the same high school. He injured his leg. We played on the same football team. He breaks his leg,
Damn.
and I was the captain of the football team. So I'm like, I'm gonna go visit this defensive lineman friend of mine, and I visited him, and like very quickly we realized, oh shit, we like the same movies. So we just started watching. He had the Friday the 13th box set. We just would fly through that in a weekend. We'd watch all the Jasons. We'd find the most deep cut horror movies and things, and so we developed this really, really strong friendship in senior year of high school. So anyway, we ended up going to college together too, and for a period of time we were roommates. And I would go out and like be his AD or his PA or whatever it was to help him make his short films and stuff. And I'll still tell him this to this day, but like, he had a lot to do with at least opening my eyes up to see that there was a career to be had here. He never mentioned how hard it was, but
Yeah.
he's certainly like, oh, cool, directing, producing these things, writing. This could be a career. So, um, you know, I'd say the first 10 years, and we've sort of talked about this, it's like three levels of directing, right? It's like level one, you put money in to get the opportunity to go shoot something, right? You got to pay for that. Level two, you just show up, you shoot, but you don't make any money, you break even. But now there's a few more resources, right? And then level three is you're actually getting paid to direct, right? To practice your art. Um, Damn, it's hard to get to that third level, right? So it took me a while. So much so, I mean, we're talking over a decade to get to a place where I was, actually being paid by a studio to, direct. And for me, just get going back to Brock's question specifically, what did that moment feel like? I applied to that same roommate who I'll tell the world his name, Adam Hendricks, who is a producer. He just produced Megan. Yeah, so Adam called me out of the blue and was like, I'm working with Warner Brothers right now. They have they asked me if I knew any directors who should apply for this Warner Brothers directing program, and I think you should apply. And my response to him was like, "Fuck that noise! Like these programs don't mean shit. Like no one ever goes anywhere." And this is before the programs actually had some weight to them, like they could do something. Because I had applied to these programs before, Sony, Universal, whatever. Nothing happened. And honestly, my first job was on a show called Lost, and I had seen people.
I think people have heard of that
Yeah,
one.
well, my first job was on Lost, and I worked in the production office. I worked for the producing director, and I got to see sort of the sentiment and the feeling of like these program type directors coming in and shadowing, and it was tough. Like people are there grinding, trying to work, and it wasn't always the most welcoming environment for someone who's wanting to just come learn and get exposure and stuff. So that all that played into me being like, I'm not going to apply to this program. And so it was my wife who convinced me on like the day before the application was due, just apply. And we had just had our first kid, and I had told her that we kind of had this agreement that I would give her an expiration date of me trying to pursue this dream, and that date was creeping very close. And maybe there's a part of me that kind of like gave up at that point. I don't know. I definitely was like, I had come to terms with doing other things with my life, because I knew that my passion is to tell stories. So even if I could direct community theater, and do something else to earn money, I think there would be a world where I'd be at peace with that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what unlocked certain things or whatever. But I applied, and I got into this program through a lot of like hoops that I had to jump through, but I finally got an opportunity. And I do remember in that moment, I just pulled over and I cried. I was by myself. I was by myself and I just had to pull the car over and I just wept, and I think it was certainly a cry of joy. But and you never, there's so many talented people who like get opportunities and doesn't turn into a career
Yeah.
for whatever reason, right? So there were no guarantees that like, yes, sure, I'd do an episode, but like that could just flatline and like
Yeah.
nothing after that. But I just think for that moment, getting to that place, it was a culmination of so much shit, and grinding and, you know, so many nights, weekends, things,
Sacrifices, man.
the sacrifices, and knowing that my family and my wife, like all these people had my back through all this, and like I can at least point to this thing and say, okay, I have a shot, and I'm fucking ready. I was very ready, and it was not going to be a lack of preparation that was going to doom me if it wasn't meant to work out, right? So,
Yeah.
so to answer your question, when I got that call, and of course, they don't tell you like a big chunk of that paycheck's going to go to joining the union, and then your agent and all
Oh,
that
bro.
stuff. So it wasn't about the money, right? It was about, I guess, validation, right? To say, hey, okay, we think you deserve a shot, because I knew in my heart, like if I got invited to the party, I will do enough to show that I can contribute something to this fiesta,
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think, and it sucks, right? As an artist, like, what are we searching for? It's like validation is a part of it, and I don't know why. I don't know what in my childhood or in my life,
Yeah.
why I'm searching for that in my work. But at the same time, I think any artist wants to know that their work is being received, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I think yeah, there's a lot of psychology behind that. But anyway, it was one of the best moments of my life just to get that call, and then based on that moment, there were additional moments like during the process and shooting, and the moment in that first episode, I suggested a really crazy sequence. If anyone is a fan of the show and has seen that episode, God Johnson, it's the escape from the insane asylum. And that was a kind of like laying it all on the line kind of a moment for me with the showrunners and with the producers. I was like, trust me enough to do this crazy sequence, this one shot, insane kind of thing. And hey, if I blow it, then you were right. But if I don't, then maybe I'll get a little bit more trust the next time around.
Yeah.
And that's how it went. So yeah, I'm just really fortunate it landed.
That's an amazing story. I obviously appreciate you sharing. There's one part I kind of want to go back to and highlight, especially for a lot of the youngins out there, like that really struck me. So back in the day, I literally had that same, call it a tradition with one of my buddies. It was me, one of my friends, and every Friday night, we'd pick a horror film and we'd saddle up and we'd, watch all the classics from basically everything you named, The Omen, The Exorcist, and we went through all of them, and we developed this amazing affinity for horror films and film in general, of course, but special effects, visual effects, all that. But it really meant something to us. And it was like this epic tradition that opened our eyes to a whole other branch of film that we didn't really know existed. And, this feeling of holy shit, like pure fright, right? Like just like adrenaline and like, holy, and that led to taking a horror film class at USC, and then taking, Alfred Hitchcock class and all that. And then, of course, us producing our first film, first film for me as a producer, The Resort, which was a horror film. I think you never know what's going to be those moments when you're young. And like at the time, we're like, yeah, we're just watching horror films, right? But things can like spark in you, and you can actually give things more meaning if you follow through on that. And I think one of the other main points and similarities I wanted to point out was you mentioned, years of sacrifice after that. And a very similar story with me of like, of course, it starts with interest and intrigue, but then, you know, from age like 17 to 20 or 16 to 24, and then I was a PA, and then after that started producing smaller things. But anyway, you never know what's going to be those moments. And I wanted to point that out for people out there of like, your passions and your interests can turn into something real and something tangible. And whatever the scale of that, you don't really know at the time and until you pursue it, or if you want to pursue it. And I just think that was like really cool and really valuable information. So thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. No, and I agree with you. And I think to put even a finer point on it, it's like it's a feeling, right? It's a feeling that you end up chasing, right? So if you're doing whatever it is you're doing and you get that moment where you've forgotten what time it is and you don't know how many hours have passed and you don't care, then you're in the flow, right? And all of a sudden, oh shit, maybe I should be trying to do more of whatever that was.
Yeah.
And like going out on the weekends and, you know, doing the short films with Adam or whoever was shooting, you know, them, and I could be helpful or whatever, like being in these film study classes. Like I remember, you know, I would do late nights, like 1, 2 a.m. in the library, just studying organic chemistry or whatever it was to get through my MCATs and all that stuff. And that was a grind, right? And like I could account for every second I was in the library for that. But like when I'm out there, you know, building a set or like, you know, operating a camera or like working with actors or like even, you know, getting crafty for the people who like are donating their time. And so it just was like, oh shit, we're a part of something, we're creating something. And there's a joy here and a high that like I need to investigate, right? And like, and so I think anyone who's out there who's feeling those moments, like, you know, think about spending more time chasing that, you know, in a healthy way. But yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. We need to pay attention to what brings us that feeling, you know?
Yeah. I'm fully with you on that, man. I remember the first film I ever did. I got an opportunity to work with Tyler Perry through all these crazy series of events. And it was, again, I had no experience in acting. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't know what classes I was supposed to take. I just knew like I had to be here, and I knew I wanted to do this since I was 5 years old, you know? And I'd done like plays and stuff when I was 10, 11, 12. But when I got that opportunity, I remember being on set, and it was a whirlwind because we shot an entire feature in 5 days, you know?
Wow.
But I remember these massively long days, and let's say I had a 14-hour day, and they're still filming. I would stay on set just to learn what the DP was doing or to shadow Tyler if I was allowed to, you know, but spend as much time, like, because that feeling, especially in a short span like that, sometimes when you go on to set, you know, it is only a couple days or it could be months, you know, it all depends on what you're filming or what role you're playing in that process. But there is like no better feeling for me than being on a set. Because every set you learn something from, whether it's the people that are directing or even the producers behind the scenes, right? The writers, the actors, that whole experience is a whole new way to shoot something, whether it's a comedy or drama or whatever it is. And like you're saying, it's like getting this high of, that's what for me, I never understood is how someone can be I can understand getting in a bad mood, but like just innately being a dick on set, you know, or like ruining that whole vibe. Because one person, I've seen it so many times, ruin that experience for everybody where I've had people their first time ever being on a set, and I'm like, dude, I love this more than anything, but that guy, he does suck. I'm not gonna lie, he does. And they're over here saying like, my experience is so bad from this dude that I never want to be on a film set again. I'm like, that sucks because you're missing out. Like, at least for me, I would do it. I say it all the time, and I've done it plenty. You know, I'm sure as you have as well. You know, when you love something, like I'll do it for free. I'll do it, if there's some way that I could find to support myself. I don't care if I was in the biggest film in the world. If it was free, I didn't get paid for it. Obviously, I would love to get paid for that.
Sure.
But I would do it because it's what I love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think to your point, you know, it's just finding those things that.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed the video.
And subscribe and hit the bell for a whole lot more to come.